So, the European Union is cooking up this massive new plan to totally revolutionize its startup scene. We're talking about an idea that could finally let Europe go toe-to-toe with the tech giants over in the US and China. Let's dig into what this plan actually is and why it's such a huge deal for Europe's future.
Okay, so to really get a sense of the scale here, on the left, you've got Europe's homegrown tech companies from the last 50 years that are worth over $10 billion. And, it's a decent list. But now look at the list from the United States. The difference is just wow. You could take the value of all of Europe's big startups, put them inside Microsoft, and you'd still have tons of cash left over.
And if you want the cold hard number, here it is. When you add it all up, American startups from the last 50 years are worth a jaw-dropping 70 times more than Europe's. So what on earth is holding Europe back? Well, to get that, you've really got to see it through the eyes of a founder.
So let's imagine two founders, Amy and Tomasz. They've built this amazing AI model, and they are ready to take on the world. But what they're about to find out is that being a founder in Europe, well, it's one heck of an expensive roller coaster.
Right off the bat, they hit three huge walls. First, just setting up their company in Belgium is this crazy maze of lawyers and notaries and paperwork in Dutch that takes them 6 weeks and costs thousands of euros. Next up, they need money, right? But international investors are pretty spooked by unfamiliar Belgian laws. And finally, when they try to hire the best people, they realize that offering stock options is a total bureaucratic nightmare.
So, why are investors so hesitant? It's not about the startup's idea. It's about the absolute mess of different national laws. They just don't want to get tangled up in the specific corporate law of a country like Belgium. You see, every single EU country has its own rules, its own paperwork, and its own hidden little gotchas. For an investor sitting in Helsinki or even New York, the risk that one tiny mistake could make their whole investment worthless it's too high.
And then you have the problem of finding talent, which gets stuck on things like this, the dry tax. In a lot of EU countries, if you give an employee stock options, they might have to pay tax on them immediately, before the shares are worth a dime, before they can even sell them. Can you imagine trying to hire someone and saying, hey, welcome to the team. By the way, you might owe the government money on your compensation before you've even earned a single euro. It's a massive turnoff.
So all this friction, all this red tape, it just adds up. Founders are burning time and cash on bureaucracy instead of actually building their product. And the result? This staggering statistic. 93% of European founders say they'd honestly just rather set up their company in the US.
But here's the good news. The EU actually has a plan to fix this whole mess, and it's a really smart idea. It's called the 28th regime. The idea is actually pretty simple. Instead of trying to get all 27 countries to agree on the same corporate laws, which, let's be honest, would be impossible, the plan is to create this optional, sort of virtual 28th member state. It would be a single Europe-wide legal system that any startup could choose to use.
And hey, this isn't just some fantasy idea. It has some serious political weight behind it. Big names like Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen have come out in support of it. Plus, this initiative called EU Inc. has gotten over 18,000 founders and investors to sign on, all pushing for this change.
So what would this actually look like for our founders? Let's go back to Amy and Tomasz and see how their story would be completely different.
Okay, with this new system, their journey is transformed. Instead of fighting with Belgian bureaucracy, they use an EU registry. It's fast, it's cheap, and it's all online. For fundraising, they use a standard contract, the EU Fast, that investors from all over the world already know and trust. And to bring in top talent, they use a single stock option plan, the EU ESOP, that works the same in every country and only taxes people when they actually sell their shares.
Now, this is a really, really important point. The 20th regime isn't some kind of total takeover. It only simplifies corporate law. All the sensitive national stuff, like local taxes, social security, labor rules, all of that would be completely untouched. Amy and Tomasz would still pay Belgian taxes for their Belgian office and follow Polish labor laws for their Polish office.
It sounds like a perfect solution, right? But there's one final political hurdle. And it's a tiny detail in how the law is written that can make this whole brilliant idea completely fall apart. It all comes down to this difference, a directive versus a regulation. See, if the EU does this as a directive, it just sets a goal, and then every country goes off and creates their own version. We'd end up with 27 slightly different 28th regimes, which completely defeats the purpose.
For this to really work, it has to be a regulation, one single law that applies exactly the same everywhere, creating one unified standard. And the stakes here are just immense. As Andreas from the EU-NG Initiative said, right now it's not Europe competing against China, it's Lithuania competing against China. To have a real shot in an age of giants, Europe has to unlock its own scale.
So let's wrap this all up by looking at the incredible potential that's just waiting to be unlocked if Europe actually gets this right. Take a look at where investment money flows right now. Less than 18% of early-stage funding in Europe ever even crosses a border. Most of it just stays locked up inside national markets. This new system would just tear down those walls and create a real single market for innovation.
The upside would be enormous. Founders could focus on building their product, not on paperwork. More international money would finally flow in. And maybe most importantly, it would give Europe's amazing pool of engineers and innovators a real reason to stay here and build the next global giants right here at home. It could transform the entire EU single market.
So the final question really is this. Could one single set of rules be the key that finally unleashes an entire continent of innovators and secures Europe's place on the world stage?